In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use sheets, covers, and popovers in SwiftUI. It's going to be simple, straightforward, and concise. I've written this very quickly in Swift Playgrounds or Swift Playground just to remove some of the visual complexities that Xcode adds. So this is a tutorial designed for beginners with a focus on how you can understand documentation yourself. So I'm going to be referencing that throughout my video. So first of all, I've just got this very simple class that I wrote. It took about 5 minutes. It's a class for a person. It has a bunch of different properties for this person: name, age, address, occupation, bank account balance, and their favorite food as well. I've just got a single function in here that doesn't take in any, it has no parameters, it doesn't accept any arguments. It returns a single string, which I have sort of mangled together here, which is just a sentence that uses every single property. We have an initializer as well, just to set those set these values when we create these variables, which I've done here. So we've got 3 people, Sam, Patrick, and Bill, and each of those are going to be used for the different views that I've created. So this is unrelated, but this is where I've got the data from for this part of the for the later parts of the video. So starting with a popover view in Swift, I have the documentation up here. You can, and it's actually explained very well. You can see how the function is defined, what parameters it takes, and then even some example code. So I've just modified the example code, and I'm just going to explain it based on how I would use the documentation to try and understand something that I may not have used before, like a popover or a cover or a sheet. So we have this SwiftUI view here. We have one variable is showing popover, which can be controlled with this @state by our SwiftUI view, and this button that I have here, this is it's called Who is Sam. And when we click on the button, it sets our is showing popover to true. So we then show our popover. When it is presented, we set when it is presented, we use a binding to this data because we can actually change it in this popover. If we only needed to monitor it or access it once, we wouldn't have to use this binding here. We set the arrow edge, so whereabouts on the popover do we want it, below or above the button, and then the view that we want to return, so our text, which prints Sam's information. So just coming back to our documentation here, you don't have to worry about this too much if you're just sort of getting started and learning Swift. You can try and break this down a little bit. So there's some content view that's returned. You can see that this is what the parameter names are, but they're also explained down here. It's a non-isolated function, which has to do with it has to do with how whether or not a function or a method, I think, can be called asynchronously or not. So it's to do with sort of data integrity and it's a bit strange. My screen's a little funky. And actors in Swift, and making sure that multiple parts of a program, if they're asynchronous, aren't trying to access data at the same time or write to a similar spot. Write to some sort of data. If you want to have a look, you can dive in a little bit deeper, but it's not important here. So is presented, it's a binding to a Boolean value that determines whether whether to present the view or not. So are we showing the pop-up view? We are when we click the button, and then when we click off, our view handles that for us, and we no longer see the view. It sets that is presented variable back to false. We have our attachment anchor, which I'll show you how we can use. It's the positioning anchor that defines the attachment point of the popover. So I think it was dot bottom, yeah, and we'll show what dot top, dot left, dot right will do in just a second. Arrow edge, the edge of the attachment anchor that defines the location of the popover's arrow. So I think that might have been what we said. Sorry, yeah, arrow edge is where that is, and our attachment anchor I haven't actually used that, so I think I've got that slightly wrong. This here will be if you want to click a button and not have the popover directly underneath the button, but by default I'm okay with that. That's what it says here, the default is bounds. And then we have a closure returning the content of the popover. So this is our closure here. It's between these two curly brackets, and it returns some content, which is a view, which is our SwiftUI text view here with Sam's info. So if I go ahead and run this program, it's very basic. You can see if I go and click on who is Sam, it's going to print Sam's information from that function that we created in our class. So Sam is 23 years old. He lives at 123 Street. That's a Plain Rock reference. If there's any, I doubt anybody's going to understand that. It's incredibly old, and it's just from like this, random video that he made when, I don't know, it wasn't very big. Sam is a student and currently has $1,024 in their bank account. Sam likes to spend money on hot dogs. If you haven't seen that video, I actually do have it up here. I'm just going to play it out loud. It's always interesting to watch, fun to watch.
Sam, what you doing? You got a hot dog, buddy?
So that's Sam. That's Sam and his hot dog, and we quite like Sam. So you click on it, you can click on it again, and it hides it. You can click off it, and it hides the popover, and that's why you have to set your is presented as a binding, so that if you click into other parts of the view, the popover is in the background. It's just going to manage changing that binding to no longer being presented. So if we change, instead of dot bottom, this arrow edge is not going to be at the bottom, it's going to be at the top. If we change it to dot top, and it's going to be shown, we'll do that. It's going to be shown at the bottom of the button, just like that. All right, we'll move on to our sheet view next. Sheet view is with Patrick. This is a little bit more complicated, but it sort of uses a very similar principle. So we have a button, we have a variable is showing sheet, and we can toggle this variable using this button instead of just setting it to true. When we add this .sheet modifier, when it is presented, we pass a binding to is showing sheet, and we also have this on dismiss argument. So we pass in did dismiss as our argument to this on dismiss parameter, and that is this function that we've created down here. It's outlined again in the docs, in the Swift docs, that when we close the sheet and when it's dismissed, we can have a function that's called to execute some sort of code. And then the next thing we want to display is our view. So we have this closure here, which encompasses this VStack, which is a Swift view. It's got a text to say, "Hi, I'm Patrick." It adds a font and a title font and some padding, and I think I just copied that from the documentation. Again, we're going to print out Patrick's information and just a little bit of information about Patrick. And then at the bottom, we have a button to donate to Patrick. This is going to act to close the sheet and call this did dismiss function. So let's just have a look at the documentation here. We have this on dismiss, which is a closure to execute when dismissing the sheet. In our case, we didn't pass it as a closure, we passed it as an actual function. But you could write, I could just copy this here, and instead of having this in our curly brackets and just pass in that same statement, we're adding $3,000 to Patrick's bank account. So we can donate to Patrick. So let's just run this program and see how this works. So we want to show the sheet, I think. So that's what we're on, showing sheet. I didn't even change this to who is Bill. So who is Patrick? This is our sheet here. That's just what I copied from the Swift docs. So this is Patrick. Hi, I'm Patrick. Patrick is 30 years old and he lives at 14 Star Street. Patrick is a fisherman and currently has minus $5,000 in their bank account. That Patrick, we need to sort you out, buddy. Patrick likes to spend money on Krabby Patties. That's probably why he's got minus $5,000 in his bank account. Just to be a little bit different, to show something a bit different, I just put a list here with 2 of the data points here. And when we click donate to Patrick, we then view Patrick again. You can see he's only got minus $2,000 in his bank account. You also notice that trying to click anywhere off the sheet is not going to close it like the popover. You have to click on this button here to close the sheet. And if we view it one more time, Patrick now has $1,000 in his bank account, so he's doing a little bit better. So our last one is our full screen cover, and that is a little bit like a sheet. This is our cover view, and I'm just going to change this. Who is Bill? If you've got a variable name, my variable name is Bill, but if it's person 1, person 2, person 3, and the names are likely to change, you can actually just pass it in like this. Oops. Bill.name. We can get rid of that who is Bill there. A very similar structure to what we've been talking about. So we have full screen cover is presented. We pass our binding here to our Boolean is presenting. So are we showing the sheet view or not? We have an onDismiss function to execute some code, a closure or a function like this when the sheet dismisses. And we have our closure here, a vertical stack, which has some information about Bill, his name, his information. This time we can tap anywhere on the VStack, and it's going to toggle this variable, whether or not is presenting or showing, so whether or not the sheet is showed or not. We set the frame width, the maximum to infinity. I actually don't think we need that at the moment. And we also have a background image for Bill, so I'm going to run this program, and just to make sure it actually looks all right. Who is Bill? So we might have actually needed that. Oops, I've just put that frame back. You can specify a frame. You can specify just the width and the height of the frame. I was just, I haven't looked at what the max width and max height properties are like for Swift, but I suppose they're sort of like CSS, where it just sets the maximum as like the maximum width as what the width is, but then no more. But if it's set to infinity, it's just going to be it's in full screen. So who is Bill? If we click on who is Bill, it animates and presents our view. Hi, I'm Bill. Bill is 70 years old and lives at 1 Wall Street. Bill is a banker and currently has a lot of money, more than $2 million in his bank account. He likes to spend his money on discounted potato chips. Thank you, Bill. So you'll notice now I'm just clicking, you might be able to hear that, I'm just clicking at the top and the bottom of the screen, but our on-tap gesture, our modifier here is only being applied to this VStack here, and our frame and our background have been just modified to that VStack, so they're not actually a part of it. So, if we rerun it and we select somewhere in the middle here, or on the text, sorry, that's going to toggle our sheet view. So we can select Hi, I'm Bill, we can select this text here, or you might want to put a button in instead. So these are 3 different methods of presenting information in Swift using popovers, sheets, and full screen covers. One of the things I didn't discuss was using an item here. It says an item as a parameter, binding to an optional source of truth for the sheet. when item is not nil, so it contains some sort of information, the system passes the item's content to the modifier's closure. You display the content in a sheet that you create that the system displays to the user. If the item changes, the system dismisses the sheet and replaces it with a new one using the same process. So there's more examples here. I encourage you to just have a look. And the See Also section under this part of the documentation is really great because this just includes all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 being the documentation of the function itself for the sheets, covers, and popovers, and the 2 different types of arguments that you can pass. So we can see full screen cover here, full screen cover here. I think they're just, I think it's function overloading, but I can't actually remember. Where they return the same sort of view, but they just have different input parameters that you have to pass different arguments to. I'm pretty sure that's overloaded functions, but we're not going to look at that in this video. So if you found this interesting and you've learned something a little bit, maybe how to look at documentation, then let me know if you've got any feedback. Also, I appreciate it. I'll take it on board, and we'll see you in an upcoming video.